After a long career in illustration, at 54, Sue set up Breakthrough Incentives, an independent tax consultancy focusing on R&D, and took it from zero to a 2.5 million profitable turnover company in just 5 years, when she then sold it to EY. So, please give it up for the amazing, award-winning businesswoman, author, broadcaster, and speaker, Sue Nelson. Welcome, Sue.
Well, first of all, I was just chatting that bloke up and told him I was 36, so that hasn't gone down very well. And also, my name isn't Sue Nelson.
Yes, and why not?
Because you can get married when you're 59. Oh, actually, I was 60, sorry. So I've changed my name.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's slightly embarrassing.
So it's now
but
Sue Warren Smith?
Exactly.
Great.
So just in case you wonder why it's all different.
Yeah, she's got two names online if it gets confusing. All right, Sue, shall we get into it?
Yep.
Right, well, I really like to start right at the beginning and talk about your whole life, so we're going to go right back to the beginning. The first thing I really wanted to ask you was, when you were younger, what did you really aspire to be?
Oh, I don't really know. I don't think I particularly aspired to be anything. I grew up in quite a rough inner city London place with an outside toilet and no bathroom and all that sort of stuff, so there wasn't really anything to aspire to other than I didn't want to be in that for very long. What I was interested in when I sort of got to secondary school was business. You didn't have business studies then or anything like that, but I was very intrigued by the fact that you could start your own business, which I thought was really quite interesting. But I didn't know how you did that. You know, that there wasn't any route that I could see. And I wasn't particularly great at school, and I was short, and I had a squint, and I had a patch over my eye, and, you know, it wasn't a great start, frankly.
A patch over your eye?
Yeah, and then I married somebody called Nelson.
Okay.
How's that? How's that happen? So I couldn't really see a route, but I did think that getting educated was probably the way to get out of that.
But so you were inspired to start a business. Did you have a certain role model, or who did you aspire to? Was there somebody in your life?
I don't think so, really, because there weren't women role models then. So when I was a kid, in the 1960s, you know, the only women who had jobs that I could see was like Hattie Jakes from Carry On Doctor, who was the matron, you know, in charge, you know, or somebody who was in charge of secretaries or teachers, or there weren't really any role models in business at all, whereas now, thankfully, there are.
So you decided education was the way. What did you study?
Well, I didn't really pass any exams, so that was a bit hard, but I could draw. So I went to art college, and I think I might have got turned down by Brighton, actually. So I got a degree by being a designer.
Okay, so you enjoyed drawing, and that's what you ended up doing. And were there any? So obviously you talked about this childhood, and, you know, not having these role models. What were your drivers back then? What drove you to actually do things and become?
I don't know, really. I just think I wanted to fulfil my potential. And when I was at school, the two choices you had were to be a nurse or a teacher. And I hated kids, so there's no way I was going to be a teacher. And also, when somebody's ill, I've just got no sympathy, so I thought I'd be absolutely useless nurse. And so I just really struggled to understand what you might do. But when I went to art college and I got a degree in graphic design, it's like, okay, I'll be a designer, I'll work in an advertising agency, went to London, and then it all started to click into place.
Yeah. And what was your first experience of work?
A bit of a shock, I think. I worked in this sort of advertising agency. The guy who was in charge was called Howard. He was 6'4" and he had a massive beard. He looked like Father Christmas. And in those days, in the 80s, people used to go out and get drunk at lunchtime and come back and then work in the afternoon, which you don't really do now. And he just was a shouty bully, which I found a bit... Well, I didn't know that was the norm. I didn't know you could act like that. So that was a bit difficult. And I just thought, well, I just have to be really good at what I do then. You know, that's the way to get on.
Yeah.
But women didn't particularly get listened to or get any airtime. And again, I struggled to find out how if you're good at your job, but you don't push yourself forward, well, how do you rise in your career?
So it's all about just be the best, and then you can pull forward, right?
Well, I thought that might work like that. Of course, it doesn't.
But it didn't.
No.
So so did you see other people around you getting further ahead for other reasons?
Yeah, except that I met my husband then, and then we got married, and then I had 2 children, and that put completely no chance of that happening. So that sort of, sets you back again.
So tell us about this. So you had a long career in illustration as an illustrator, correct?
No, I wasn't an illustrator actually. I mean, I can illustrate, but the thing about a designer is that it's publicity, and in those days it was television ads, radio ads, and sort of leaflets and posters and stuff like that.
So quite a broad spectrum.
There weren't computers, so you had to draw them out and draw and stuff like that. So.
And so you had quite a long career in that. Was it quite a fulfilling career? Would you say that you?
Yeah, because it's creative. Really. And I think the thing, if you're a designer or if you're in digital or if you're in any creative industry, what you're doing is you're solving problems. So I think it makes you an amazing entrepreneur because you're constantly working out how to do things better, quicker, and just differently. Yeah. So actually the world now favours people who are creative. So I would encourage anybody to go into the creative industries, particularly somewhere amazing like here in Brighton and Hove, because I think it better equips you to be an entrepreneur and to scale up and solve problems.
Great. And well, the creative industries are booming at the moment as well.
Don't be a lawyer. Don't do that. Don't be an accountant. None of that. Get in and be creative.
Cool. And so you mentioned about this boss. I presume this is the same story. So in your book, Swimming on My Own, really, really great. You said that you had some pretty bad experiences with bosses in the past, and I presume this is one of those experiences. Do you think that those experiences shaped you into what kind of boss you became? Obviously, you didn't have a lot of empathy for people who are sick, but in general?
That is true. I think in the end, you just get bored of it. You get bored of people who are bullies, actually. And I think the higher up you get in corporate life, with big structures and lots at risk. I'm not saying this is like this everywhere, by the way, but it is in a lot of places. It seems to me that people who are prepared to lie and cheat and bully have an advantage to progress quicker than those who are kind and considerate, and I don't think that's right.
Short term, though, right? Short term that happens, but long term, the good people win.
Oh, really?
Right? Come on, let's have a bit of optimism.
How old are you?
Oh, okay.
I mean, I wish. I mean, I do think that's changing a bit. But I think what those people are really good at, and if you look at somebody like Donald Trump or, might say Vladimir Putin, I don't know. I think what they're really good at is being slightly, submissive to people above them, but really horrible to the people below them. And they manage to, get that just right, which almost guarantees their progression, through. They're really good at that. And for me, that's not the way you should treat people. And actually, it's a really bad idea because you suppress other people's opinions. That means you don't make the right decisions because you don't make them in the round, and you certainly don't recruit a huge variety of people because you have to recruit in your likeness because you can't have somebody contradict you. It doesn't work like that for those types of people. And actually what happens is as they progress more and more and that type of behaviour and their opinions just become more and more in a bubble, they will catastrophically fail at some point because the world changes around them and they don't notice.
Yeah. And going slightly off timeline here, but in your company, obviously employing all these different people, did you ever experience anybody that was like that you employed and then you suddenly had to deal with? Because obviously you can control what you do. But...
Yeah, a couple of people. Not very often for us, though, because we deliberately wrote our job ads and our interviews and all that sort of stuff to talk about people's attitudes and behaviours. I mean, you'd never employ Ed, would you, if you've got the, if there was a job advertised. Only joking, Ed. But because actually what we're interested in is, what is somebody like? What's their culture like? How do they act? How do they react? Are they okay with change? You know, are they adaptable?
Some
Are they
employing
kind? Are they
attitude.
nice? Do they like other people? That's what we would test at interview. Couldn't care less what they'd done. Really couldn't care less. In fact, we didn't ask for qualifications, didn't ask for references actually, because it's of no use to me. It doesn't matter at all. What we're interested is in getting a really great team of people.
Yeah.
You know, and with all due respect, you know, in 5 years, you know, to sell to a multi-billion-pound international company with just 22, 23 of us, and be sought after and bought, means that these people can achieve amazing things if you just let them. Just let them step back. Don't, you know, get rid of your own ego. Let people do those things. It's amazing what they can do.
Amazing. And going back to your career, what kind of, I'm really curious to know, what kind of employee were you?
Probably arsey a little bit, I would say. No, I think I'm a really hard worker. I didn't believe in treading on people at all, but I think as I got older, I got more confidence to challenge in a very constructive way if I didn't think things were right. Whereas before, when I was younger, I would just change jobs if I didn't like the culture. But you can't keep doing that.
I think a lot of people do that these days. Well, actually, you know, everyone's talking about the fact that people are leaving jobs because, you know, of culture. It's quite a big thing at the moment. But how do you challenge, or this is going into a whole other talk now, but how do you challenge a culture when you're one employee at a big company?
Do you want to be there? I don't want to be in places.
I don't want to leave.
I don't want to be in places like that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what we found is if somebody didn't fit our culture, it might not necessarily be their fault. It's just it doesn't suit them.
Yeah.
So it's better to have those conversations early on and say, look, it doesn't suit you. The longer you stay, the more you're going to lose your confidence, and actually we'll help you go and get another job. So we would help them get their CVs sorted, we'd help them, you know, practice interviews, and then we would help them exit elegantly from our company. And actually they ended up being ambassadors for us when they left. So why would you not do that? And Brady, our managing director, and me always had this saying, is we'd rather have a hole than an arsehole. Because you will fill that gap eventually, but if you get the wrong person in there, it doesn't matter how brilliant they are, they will upset other people who will leave and not tell you. And so a really difficult, obnoxious person is not worth employing, doesn't matter how great they are. It's my personal opinion.
That's right. So tell us about this transition from design to then setting up your company. Was it straight away like that, or was there other things that went on
so I think,
between?
Like most people, you know, you start off doing something, start off being a designer, and then I got more involved in marketing and business development. So actually my roles were actually very broad. Marketing strategy, then you end up being a chief executive somewhere, you know, and you just rise up a bit, I suppose. And then eventually, I think for me, so I was corporate, I worked in banks, worked at charities, you know, went to sort of different organisations. But I think eventually, and okay, I do admit I was 54. Eventually I was thinking, right, I've got 6 more years of working. I can either try this experiment and go for it, prove it can be done with nice people, or I can just sit here working somewhere I don't particularly like. So I decided to go for it, and then I thought if it all went pear-shaped, okay, I might, you know, be 60, but then actually I'll just have to go and work in London for a couple of years and make that money up, and then I'll retire. So I sort of gave myself 5 years, really, actually, which is how it worked out, to try this experiment. I put nearly every bit of money I had in it and just decided to go for it.
Wow. You gave yourself 5 years to start, or to succeed?
From the start to selling out.
And you did it.
I was always going to sell it because I knew I'd run out of energy, and because of the age I am, it's like, well, you need to hand it over to somebody else. So I set it up deliberately to sell it, but we had a really good laugh along the way.
Amazing. And so what was it like then, you've decided to start, and also actually backing up on that, how did you end up going into that particular company, so R&D tax credits? Where did that come from?
I mean, basically you don't get invited to dinner, because if you say you do something in tax, like nobody speaks to you. But it wasn't about that for me. It just was still marketing. So if you apply for R&D tax relief, what you do is you go around and you see amazing companies, very much, I'm sure, like people have companies in this room. you go and talk to them and find out what they're doing, which is fantastic. You learn about all these things you never knew about. And then you have to write a story about what they do. Well, that's marketing if there ever was. The fact is you then use that story to then get them some money back. So for me, you could call it R&D tax relief if you like, but it wasn't. It's about meeting amazing people, writing their story, and then trying to get some money back for them. So I didn't actually consider it to be that different.
Yeah, I like that.
Especially as for a lot of them, they go, I'm going to use that for my publicity. That's really good what you've written there. Yeah, okay, use it. It's great.
Yeah. And did you have all the people around you to help you set up? Like, did you just know everything to do because you've had worked on all these different companies, or were you kind of like, where do I even begin?
Well, my first company I started, I think I was about 22 or 23. I started a graphic design agency after I'd worked in London. And I just learned a lot about how you set up a business. That catastrophically went tits up, so that was... You learn loads when that happens. And then I did a bit of consultancy for a while, as a small consultancy when the kids were younger. So this was my third crack at it, I think.
Okay.
I did have an MBA, so there's some academic stuff behind that. So I did feel quite well equipped to start.
And can we talk about you being in your 50s? I think a lot of people...
I'm glad you keep mentioning that.
Let's talk about it.
It's really kind.
We've got to.
It's kind
a lot
of
of people have come here to specifically listen to you about that. And a lot of people that I've spoken to about their stories, they've told me, and I don't know if this is just specific to some people, that their 50s are quite transitional for them in general, just like they end up making a lot of different decisions in their life, or just deciding to up and quit one thing and do something else. Did you experience that?
I think for me, it's really hard to start up your own business when you have a family, because it's a massive risk.
Yeah.
And you've either put your house up or you've given up a job, and financially it's really, really tough and it's scary. I wasn't brave enough, I think, to do that. I was earning a huge amount of money and I don't think I was brave enough. But when your children have left home, you have no mortgage, and you're staring down the barrel of, oh great, I've got 20 or 30 years to myself. What are you going to do with it? That takes a massive amount of pressure off.
It's like starting a whole new...
And therefore your mindset is really different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wanted to lose that money, but it is different. And people who don't run a business do not understand how much you wake up in the morning and worry whether you can pay your own salary, let alone your employees' salaries, and how much is at stake, and how tough it is. They just don't get it. Whereas, my position later on is I didn't have those worries. It would have been a bit of a mess if I'd have cocked it up, but, I didn't have as much to lose. I just didn't. And I could concentrate 100% on it.
Yeah. I mean, there have been some, general research studies done about when people start companies and how likely they are to succeed. I think it was if you start your company in your 50s, you're 2.8 times more likely to succeed than if you started in your 30s.
It's only because you've made stupid mistakes along
you've
the
learned
way.
from loads of stuff, right?
You're not any better.
Yeah.
You've just learnt a bit more about what not to do, I think.
So this particular company, if you started it, 10 years before, 20 years before, do you think it would have been as successful?
Possibly, but I think it would have been much, much more stressful. And I think I might not have made the same decisions because there was so much at stake.
Yeah.
So your risk tolerance, is different, and I think you have to take judicious risks as an entrepreneur, but your risk profile is different.
That's really interesting about the risk profile.
And it allowed me to take opportunities perhaps I might not have done. If I was in a different situation.
I like that. Yeah, the risk thing must change a lot. And then in terms of your mindset in general, from running your previous businesses and then this one, was there any other shifts that you were things that you...
It's great because you can do what you want. It's brilliant. You've got a boss. It's kind of fantastic. And also being starting off as a designer, it meant I could create the brand from scratch. So we could just do what we wanted, didn't have to check in with a board who would go, oh, I don't think you should do that. It's like, well, what do you know? And it actually meant we could have some fun, I think. It was serious, but the team were just really good people. And if something went wrong, we weren't, we're not doing that again. And actually we could just change it and do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And when you've got a big organisation, you can't react to that quickly. But that's the joy of having a small business. And that what gives you an advantage against your bigger competitors. You can move so quickly, and you should.
So it sounds like quite a lot of it came naturally to you in this business. Was there anything that you weren't good at, or anything that didn't come naturally to you that just couldn't
I think
quite...
after 35 years of working, I'd sort of, I've been in charge of a lot of people, so I knew quite a lot about the HR bit, the legal bit. I know how to do the finances inside out. Obviously, I'm a marketeer. So, over those years, I was lucky enough to draw on all of those things. I think the difficult thing is when you scale up is what bits do I give to somebody else as we grow? Mm-hmm. So I kept the marketing to the last possible time that I could give it to somebody else. But for example, Brady, who's a managing director, had a background in recruitment and HR. So the first thing is great. As soon as we get, she can do that bit. And I think what you need to do is get people around you. And the first thing you do when you get in the office, when you're a bit bigger, is you look at what's on your desk and you go, who can I give that to? That's what you should be doing. Because you can't scale unless you start divesting yourself of all these different elements. So that in the end, you're sort of not doing much at all. But that's where you should be, because you should be having this helicopter view of how the business runs, but not operationally be doing stuff anymore. And that's where you need to get yourself to. If you're taking control of a lot of decisions, you will slow the growth down, because you will be the sticking point every time. Because people are waiting for you to make decisions, whatever it is. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is you've got to get great at time management. Mm-hmm. It's really tiring. And if you've got a full diary and you're booked up for the next 4 or 5 weeks and nobody can get to see you, you are rubbish at time management and you are not a good entrepreneur. You've got to make time for yourself. You've got to build stuff into your diary, or at least a couple of times a week. You've got a couple of 2 or 3 hour blocks where you can think, you can talk to your staff, you can be surrounded by everybody else so that you don't lose touch. And you tell everybody they cannot put any appointments in those, come what may, no matter how important they are, because you must have those every week. And you must be around everybody in the business, otherwise you're not going to make great decisions. So manage your time, because you need the energy and you need to be on it every day. So get good at time management if you're not. It's not talked about much, but I think it's a critical skill for anybody that runs any type of business or manages a lot of people. How are you going to get up the top of this pyramid and gradually give stuff away as you go up? That's the hardest bit to do. You'll get sales, but how are you going to actually operationally manage it?
Scale it, absolutely. I really want to talk a little bit more about your team and culture and how you... scaled that culture. How many people did you eventually have working with you in the company?
I think there were 22 or 23,
okay.
Weren't many.
There was something that you've said, and I can't remember where I found this, but I'm going to quote you.
It's probably a lie.
You said, success comes from imagination and freedom, about thinking in a non-linear way, and that the only way to do this is to have a truly diversified workforce. Can you share what you mean about a truly diversified workforce?
So there's a lot of talked about agenda, which is one thing, but that's not truly diversified. And there's a lot of, talked about, ethnic diversity, but that's not what it's about either. It's about true diversity for me. So if I may be critical, and shouldn't we say this, but, if you look at the cabinet at the moment, the government cabinet, it's great. We've got people from all sorts of races, but you know what? They all went to the same schools. That's not diverse. It's ethnically diverse, but it doesn't really matter because they all went to the same schools and the same universities and they all studied PPE at Oxford and all that shit. So, it's not that helpful. Yeah. It would be helpful if it was mixed up with a whole bunch of other people. So for me, truly diverse it's an age thing, it's an education thing, it's colour, it's identity, it's gender, it's all of those things. And, you need a range of people and you have to be big enough to let them tell you that you're an arse if you are, or you make the wrong decision. Because it's that type of debate, grown-up debate, that's exciting, I think. And you've got to make sure people will tell you if you're getting too big for your boots.
Yeah. And how do you instill that culture? How do you lead
you
people
you recruit for
in
it.
the right way?
Yeah. And if somebody doesn't fit that culture, you have to have very grown-up conversations about the fact that they're not acting in the way that you want them to act, and they will be leaving if they don't adjust. But most times, if you recruit properly, people are relieved to find an organisation that will let them really thrive.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go to work and do a bad job. Nobody.
Absolutely. And this thing about imagination, freedom and non-linear thinking, obviously there's the true diversity side of it. Is there something to it as an individual of being more non-linear in your thinking, would you say? Is there something that you particularly, do you feel that you've approached your business in that kind of way? I think a great example is you've already mentioned, for you it wasn't R&D tax credits, for you it was writing people's stories. And I think that's a really great example of looking at something in a completely different way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've just got different people, they'll come up with different ideas. Of course they will. But you have to ask them. You have to let them.
Yeah.
And you have to create a culture where that's okay, or it's rewarded, really.
Yeah. And did you, when you started the company, obviously you gave yourself those 5 years, did you have a vision for how big you wanted to build it, that you wanted to sell it? Did you have all of that planned out and drawn out on a vision board? What was your approach?
What is that? I don't know. No. Do you know what I had? I had in mind an amount of money I wanted to retire on.
Okay. Like a personal goal. Great.
Because I thought, right, now if I have a house like this and then I need a pension, because I didn't have any money at all when I started it off, by the time I put the money in, and then I need to, say I live for another 25 years, 85, that's not too, that's not, if I'm good. How much money will I need? Oh, and I want to go on holiday. Oh, and I want a really flashy car. And but you can see clothes are not important to me. But, it's like, so how much money will I need in order to do that? And then I work backwards from that.
Great. Well,
I mean,
that's a vision board.
Well, most companies will sell between 3 to 5 times their profit. So it's like, okay, so I need to get to this turnover with this percentage profit. That will make me attractive to buyers, and therefore that's my target.
Great. And I really want to talk about the sale as well. We'll get into that in a second. But first of all, I kind of want to go back through your journey growing the company. It all sounds like it went really well, and then you sold it. Tell us some bad stuff. Tell us what were the really bad moments, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah. So one of the things I did, which was a massive mistake, because I said I'd never do this. I said I'd rather sell the big issue than do this, but I did do it. And that is I employed my husband.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's spectacularly wrong, because I realised he was crap. He was useless.
What was his role?
I don't know what his role was, really. We'd been married for 29 years and all that sort of stuff, and it didn't go very well. But I think it is very difficult to work with relatives, and it's hard. And that could be, working with your children. It could be a family business. It's really tough, because can you still have those conversations? And it is very hard. The sort of business things that we did wrong, I think I let go of the business too soon.
In what sense, like the
So when I was saying, we get, and actually we had a massive dip about the second or third year, and we really plateaued, and it's like, no, there's a growth. And I couldn't work out what the issue was. So I had to go back in to be quite operational, to sit in there and actually really work out what it was. And I think basically what we did is we set the wrong targets, I think. And target setting dictates behaviour. And actually what we were doing is looking very much at getting new leads and, making lots of friends, as you would say. But actually we weren't looking at converting those things.
Right,
because actually that's what counts, and it's great networking, but is that of any use? It's great making friends, but, they do have to turn into business. Or introduce you to somebody or whatever. And I think we concentrated too much on spreading that out and not focusing on what it brought in. So we had a bit of a dip, and then that sort of corrected. Other than that, I made loads of mistakes. I mean, give me an area that you'd like me to talk about.
What was your worst moment in business where you were like,
My worst moment in business wasn't actually in that company.
Okay, yeah.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Okay, so a lot of you may deal with the media. I don't know, so you're trying to get PR and get in front of stuff. And one particular job, I used to be on television and radio a lot because of some of the work that we used to do. So I'd be on BBC Breakfast or, you know, Radio 4 with John Humphreys in the morning, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then one day, I won't go into the ins and outs of it, but I was at something like this, and I didn't think there were any journalists. I specifically asked at the time, are there any journalists? Because I'm going to be a bit, you know, over the top. And I described the place I was working at the time as the arse end of the world, as a joke, right? Completely as a joke, because I worked there, and my staff came from there. And what I was trying to say was, we need to make investments in some of these communities. But, you know, so I said, so of course there's a journalist there who reported that word for word. And then it's like, as soon as I saw it reported, it's like, this is going to go spectacularly wrong. And the problem with the press is they never put anything in context. Do never trust a journalist, okay, never. Don't ever say that something's off the record, because they don't take any notice of that. And they won't contextualise it. So yes, I had said that, but I said that because I wanted to invest in our community where we were based. Anyway, then it was like, well, this is a gift for journalists. So first of all, they can quite legitimately say that some woman thinks somewhere up north and she was born in London is awful. They love that. You know, Southerners don't get Northerners. The fact that I'd lived in Manchester for 20 years sort of seemed to pass them by. And then the second thing is, it means they can quite legitimately put the word arse in every headline that they have.
No.
So you can imagine, you know, the Sun had a big headline, Wigan Rear. They thought that was very funny, as in Wigan Pier. And then, you know, this woman said that Wigan is the arse end of the world, and it was like, it was everywhere. Oh, God, it was catastrophic. It was on, I had to ring up my mum, who reads the Daily Mail. Apologies, everybody. God, I try and wean her off it, but it's never worked. I was going like, Mum, just to let you know, I'm going to be in the Daily Mail tomorrow. Oh, right, is it one of the things that you're doing again? No, this is about, I've just said something like, it's going to be, all your friends are going to be talking about it. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, in the morning she goes, there's a double-page spread here with your photos saying arse and la la la. So I got known as the arse lady, which wasn't great. And to be honest, it actually, at the time, completely ruined my career.
Oh, God. What?
So I lost my job.
Did you just, like, go and, like escape for a little while and then come back once people forgot?
It was really hard.
Yeah.
Because when I went for interviews, I go, you're that arse lady, we're not employing you. So it's like, it was really difficult.
Because we're laughing about it now, but if you imagine in the moment, that must have been absolutely...
Yeah. Anyway, that's gone now, mostly out of social media. You can look it up if you want. There's still a few things hanging around. Hence, now you know why I've changed my name. But I learned a lot from that, I think, is that, you know, you do have to be careful with the media and the press. And social media, we know how many people have come unstuck in social media. So, have your opinions, do those things, but just be really mindful of, can somebody twist this in the wrong way and chop it up, you know, and use it on its own. And it's quite hard to safeguard against that. Yeah. So if you do find yourself, you know, as a spokesperson or doing that regularly, you've got to be trained. And make sure you only put yourself in a position where you feel comfortable, and never say stuff if you don't have to, I think is the thing. So I've done loads of stupid things like that. That's helpful.
Brilliant. We've all learnt something, how to speak to journalists. So I really wanted to get into the sale of breakthrough incentives and this journey with EY, which is really exciting. Congrats on that again.
Thank you.
Yeah, go on. Well done.
Timing was amazing. It was 2 weeks after COVID hit. Oh my God, that was close.
So how did it all come about? Obviously, were you preparing some people prepare their company for sale and then go for the sale? Did they approach you? How did it all come about, if you're allowed to say, or what you're allowed to say?
The first thing that happened is we were getting attractive to buyers because we had a 40% net profit, not gross profit, which most of you will know is an astounding achievement, especially with, so we're doing $1 million profit on $2.5 million with 23 people. So it's an astounding achievement. So obviously that made us quite visible to some people. So the first thing that happened is this guy got to know about us and said he was quite interested. Now, his name was Nick Gold, and I didn't know who this person was. So he said he was quite interested in the company. Would I go and see him? So I thought, oh, okay, I'll go and see him. And I think that what happens is when your company becomes attractive, people will start to talk to you about buying. And in my experience, I think the first one or two who come and talk to you, they're not the ones you should sell to. Don't be flattered by it. I'd go through that process because you can learn a lot, but don't sell at that point. Anyway, this guy, so I turned up at St Pancras, and then he sent a car to come and get me.
Already starting to woo you, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting a beat up, Fiat Punto, obviously, but it was this huge, big VW thing with blacked out windows. And when I opened the door, it was all leather. There were 2 television screens, a coffee machine, and a champagne bar in it, and all that. So his chauffeur took me to his house, which was huge, in North London, and there were these sort of uniformed staff, puffing everything up. And then he told me to come down into his bar in the basement, who conducts meetings in his own bar, which is really, really naff, I tell you. So he stood the side of the optics, and I sat on a bar stool. And then he started questioning me about the company and all that. And I thought, I actually really quite liked him. I mean, he was ridiculous, but I really quite liked him. Anyway, so I thought I won't hear anything about that again. Anyway, he then said he would like to come and see us. So he then came, and I won't go into it, but it was quite obvious that his culture, he was very shouty on the phone and rude to his staff. It's like, no, definitely not. Anyway, he offered me £1 million. And he said, I will give you £1 million if you won't talk to anybody else for the next 6 months, and I can track your business, and then I will decide how much I'm going to pay for it. And he said, and if at the end of 6 months I decide I don't want it, you can just keep the £1 million. Anyway, so I thought about it for about 2 seconds, and I went, no, I don't really want to do that. Well, the reason why I said that is me and Brady stalked him on social media. Oh my God, it was hilarious. So this guy, Nick, was described as a multi-millionaire music mogul, and he just got married to this woman who was, Aldo Zilli, the celebrity chef in America. It was his daughter, and she was described as a beauty who did reality TV. Not sure what she did, and then they'd had this wedding I think it was in Florida somewhere, where there was hundreds of guests who appeared to be wearing not much, I have to say. And there was photographers everywhere, and God knows how much this wedding cost. And then they had another sort of second wedding, is it? I don't know, in London, where Boy George did the music and all that sort of stuff. And it was him. Something not selling to him, but we thought it was absolutely hilarious. And then I think it was about 18 months later, we found out that he went spectacularly bankrupt, owing £22 million. So my advice is, definitely don't go with the first person who comes across, but also check people out. Go on Companies House, check out social media, really, really make sure you investigate whoever it is you're talking to. And if you're not comfortable, don't even bother. So after that episode, which we found hugely amusing, I then went to a proper business broker with a proper corporate lawyer and a really good tax accountant, got this team together, and then we started putting that package, if you like, together to go out to buyers. It was all very confidential, didn't let the staff know, and it's not because I didn't trust the staff, but what I was really worried about is that they might think that they were going to lose their jobs or whatever, and I didn't want anybody to be unsettled or nervous. And I wanted to sell to absolutely the right sort of people that valued our culture and would look after our staff, which is what we found in the end. So what you do is get a great team together. The business brokers we used then proactively sold us, which is really important. So don't go to one of those business brokers that's like Rightmove, where they take your details and put it on a website. Not particularly helpful. You need somebody who will talk to you at length, understand your business, and go out and search for buyers, not advertise, which is what they did. Valuing a business, am I talking too much here? Is that all right?
No, please, really interesting.
So valuing a business is really difficult. And I think normal businesses, it will be between 3 to 5 to 6 times profit. Nobody gives a toss about your turnover. Nobody. I think the only time where that differs is if possibly you're in digital and you have some great intellectual property that is hugely, hugely protected. And then what somebody's buying is they're not actually buying your company, they are buying what you've invented as such. So that world works differently. But if you are going to go down that route, you must protect what you're doing. You have to protect it because otherwise you have nothing to sell. If somebody can rip it off, they will. But if we return to my normal world, it's about the profit that you generate. So in general, it's going to be around about that, but it's like selling your car. It's actually about what somebody's prepared to pay for it. We were really lucky, but that's because I think we had stunning figures. We had, I can't remember now, 37 potential people who are interested, and then we got it down to 7 buyers that we really thought fitted what we did. You have to remove yourself from the business by the time that you're selling it. And the reason for that is it takes at least 2 days a week to sell your business over 6 to 9 months. They want to know everything. They'll want all your bank account details, all your bank statements. They'll want every single contract of your staff. They want to know all your pension details. They want to see every board meeting minutes that you have. They'll want to see, I don't know, just want to see everything. Because they don't want to be left with something that they don't know what was under the bonnet, so to speak. So they literally go through every single thing you do with a fine-tooth comb. Everybody's salaries, have you done your national insurance payments? Can we see all your VAT returns? Everything. Now that takes a huge amount of time. You have to be the point where you sell your business down to 2 or 3 days a week because you will not have the time to actually get all that together. And you can't devolve it to somebody else because they will leak the fact that you're selling the company. So you've got to get that together. The second reason why you need to extract yourself from the business is if you sell your business with you in it, they're buying you. And therefore, they're going to be tying you down to working for them in your business. It's not yours anymore. And is that what you want as an entrepreneur? You've got to really make that decision. If the company is me, they're going to be buying me and not a company. And then you won't be in control of the decisions or the targets. Your payoff will be based on what you bring in, but actually you don't have control of what you bring in. So how likely is it that somebody's going to make that final payment? And I've seen it go wrong so many times. So I think you've got to make sure they're not buying you, they're buying the business, which means your processes have got to be great. Everything's got to work really well because that's what they're buying. If you name your company after your name, that's a difficult one as well. You're not going to be able to sell it, I don't think. It's quite difficult because they'll want you to be an ambassador and they'll want you to do this and want you to do that. So, remove yourself from the company, give yourself the space to sell the company. You've got to prove it can work while you're not there. So, you've got to get to that point where everybody else is making decisions. That's what I'm saying. You're getting up and up. And actually what you should be doing is devolving yourself operationally so that actually can do without you. Hard thing to do, but that's what you've got to do. And then you get down to the basics of negotiating price and all that sort of stuff and all the tax things that go with it, which is a boring nightmare, but it's got to be done. And it'd be very difficult to do that quicker than 9 months, I would say.
Wow, very long process.
The other thing is if you don't remove yourself from the business, and you're the person responsible for getting money in. That's nice and quiet now. As soon as you're diverted, your income will start going down, which allows the buyer to be in a much better negotiating position because you've had a dip in income. So you've got to make sure that you've got a trajectory, because
keep the whole business going.
Yeah, because what a buyer is buying is, where is this going to be going in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time? So you've got to show a trajectory, and I think the key to selling a business is timing. At what point does it look the best it's going to be?
Yeah.
And I've run out of energy, and like this is the point where it has to be.
Yeah.
So it is about timing, removing yourself. What is it you're selling? It's got to work like a machine without you.
I mean, there's so many different things to think about at the same time, right? And then once it got acquired, I don't know, people talk about like there's this one day where actually everything gets signed and it's done. Not strictly true,
actually. I would liken it to selling a house. Mm-hmm. So the best way of doing it, and what happens often, is that you will exchange contracts. Yes, we agree. This is the figure. This is what happens. Now, this is the date where we're going to sign. Mm-hmm. So the exchange contracts, at that point, they can't get out of it. But often they'll say, we will then sign on the dotted line on this particular day, but you have got to have done these things before we get there. Mm-hmm. So there will always be a couple of things that are outstanding. Yeah. So, again, a bit like selling a house, to say, are you going to leave the curtain poles? Are you going to do this? Is that window's broken? Can you fix that before we move in? Yeah. So there will often be a gap between what I would call exchange of contracts and then the decision to sign, and it's probably a good idea to have that. It's very hard to get all that done in one hit.
Day. Yeah. And did you celebrate once it was all done?
Well, do you know, it takes so long. I was so relieved. It was like it's the biggest anticlimax in the world, in a way. Yeah. In a way, it's like, oh God, thank God, thank God. So it was hard. I think for me as well, if you have a gap between exchange and signing on the dotted line, it gives you the time where you are in control of communications. You can then go and tell your staff exactly what's happening, because that is really, really, really important. So for me, the day that happened, we got all the staff together. They didn't know anything about it. Sat down, and there's 3 things you need to tell your staff. The first thing is, I've sold the company. Second thing is, not a single person's going to lose their job. And the third thing is, you're all going to be still here with the same contracts. Nothing's going to change. It's just a different owner. Because nobody's interested in anything else. They're obviously worried. Yeah. So then you can say, we'll give you more details, and we can do that now if you want, but I'm just telling you that now, so that you're all absolutely, you know exactly where you are. And I think for me, you must remember that, because you want those people to stay for the new owner, and you want them to still carry on and do it as we always did it. Yeah. It's just that I don't happen to be there. Didn't want me there anyway.
And so after you got it acquired, you didn't retire, really? You've been doing loads of other things.
So nearly every time you'll have an earn-out of some sort. So nobody will give you 100% on when you complete. The most you'll get is 70%. It's between 50, 60, 70%. So you will get a chunk of that, and then the rest of it will be dependent on what you negotiate over the next period of time. So a lot of it is about handover, and all that sort of stuff. They might ask you to work on specific projects or manage specific clients, and that is for you to negotiate. My personal opinion is, don't negotiate you bringing in a load of work and all that when you're not in control, because it's not fair. They might change the goalposts. They might say, oh, actually, we're going to move this over here and that over here, and it's like, well, no, I can't bring this in now. So be really careful. Be more careful about the earn-out bit than the actual, on the nail day sort of price. The other thing that you must remember is, when you get a wodge of money, you will pay 20%, what used to be called entrepreneurs tax relief. You'll get free of tax for the first $1 million, but after that it's 20%. So you need to remember that is what you're going to do. If you use a business broker, which I would highly recommend, you're very unlikely to get anybody that's good who will take less than 5% of what you get for the business. So you can see already you're beginning to chip away at that. It's very unlikely you're going to get a lawyer that's going to charge you less than 50 grand for doing it properly. So you might think you're going to be hugely rich, but take all those things into consideration. So I would say, in all honesty, if you sell your business, you're only going to get 75% of that. And don't forget, you're not going to get it all in one go either. So you've got to be really careful about what you agree in the sort of earn out bit. Try and do it for 2 years and not 3 as well.
And so...
Sorry, I know that's a bit boring, but I think it's really important if you're selling a business.
And so now you're in the food journalism business.
No.
You talk about, you've got food.
No, so one of the things we did is, so one of the things I did is food clients were big for us. They innovate a lot. So we were getting a lot of R&D tax money back for these guys. But in terms of marketing, it's like, well, how do you get to them? They don't know that if they're spending ages developing a vegan something or a gluten-free something, that they can get this money. And if you phone up and go, "Hi, my name's Ed Chin, and did you know that you can get 50 grand back if you do this?" "Yeah, right, mate." Put the phone down. You're not. Yeah, you're not going to do that, and nobody's going to take your call. They're busy. But what we worked out is if you go, "Hi, we have this amazing radio program. We so want to talk about your product so that we can promote you can get more business. Are you okay to come to our studios and record podcasts with us?" They always go, "Yeah." And then that means making friends, which is exactly what this is about. It means you make a friend with that person, you can help promote them, and then you can have a really casual conversation about, "This is amazing, do you know what, we can get you some money from that." And so we always did this radio show as part of our marketing route to market. And then when I sold the business, it's like, well, I need to keep doing something. So I've carried it on. And the point of doing it is we just want to promote amazing companies, and that's growers and farmers, and just make sure that the great British public buy local. So it's a charitable thing from my point of view. But I've been doing it for 5 years, so...
Amazing.
We've got over 300 podcasts, so.
Wow.
And also, when they come to studio, they bring loads of stuff with them, so I get to eat loads, I get free gin and all that sort of stuff, so it's worth doing.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And what other stuff are you getting into now?
I'm just on a number of non-exec boards for charities, and I do spend a lot of time trying to mentor small businesses, particularly women in business, because I think sometimes they're not as confident as they should be, and they definitely don't get the funding they should. Bit biasness there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one for us to tackle there. But around in terms of funding, I guess we didn't really talk about that. You didn't raise funding for your company, did you? Did you raise funding?
I didn't use any funding. I couldn't get any.
You couldn't get? Did you try to raise?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Well, I didn't try to raise it. Have I just?
No, it's on.
Oh, it's on. Is it? It's on. That's good. Yeah. I didn't want to give away any equity. But I did try to get loans and stuff from banks, factoring companies. No, not a dicky bird. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, and I guess also, well, it's a whole thing. We'll get into another time. We're running out of time. I want to get to questions. But big thing, and I know that you are quite passionate about female entrepreneurs and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's so much on Sue online. There's so much you can find in terms of your podcast and your ebook and all that kind of stuff. So I'd highly recommend everyone checking it out. She talks about some really interesting things. One final thing I wanted to end on before we go over to questions is you talked about this factor of imagination and freedom for success. I just wanted to ask you about, you've had all these different transitions and you built this company that you sold. What other, 2-3 vital things were there that helped you to achieve that success? So just kind of rounding up, what are the most important things that people could take away and potentially apply to their business?
The most important thing is it's really, really hard to run a business. It's tough. And, we know that after 3 years, 2/3 of businesses that have been set up have gone under. Or it's been too hard and somebody's given up. Don't give up. It's everybody finds it hard. Everybody's, sat there in the dark, crying or worrying, whatever it might be, and that is perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal. And I read somewhere again, which drives me insane, women can have it all. No, you fucking can't. You can't. You are juggling, and it's the same with guys. You're juggling, and it's hard, and you drop some of those balls some of the time, and everybody does. So if anybody makes it look easy, that's rubbish. It's hard. I've made lots of mistakes. There are points where we could have not made it, I think. I'm just like, I'm not giving up. I'm just not giving up. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. You know, get a mentor, go and talk to somebody, whatever it might be. It's hard, but please don't think that being a success is easy. I think successful people make it look easy, and because we're British, we play it down. So, you know, it's a hard journey. And that's the message I think I want to give. It's not easy, you know, and sometimes people make it look easy and people say you can have it all. Well, you can't. It's, you know, some things have to give sometimes and you get the balance wrong, you know, but you'll get there. You'll get there. But so don't beat yourself up.
I think a lot of people in this room will
Don't
relate
beat yourself up about it.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you for spending your evening with us. You have been really honest and brilliant and funny. So please,
I don't intend to be funny. It just happens.
it just comes naturally. So please, everyone, please give Sue a big round of applause.